to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Phil Rison, Executive Director of the NIAAA. Welcome to the podcast, Phil.
It's good to be with you again, Mark. I think we make this an annual event, so it's always good to speak with you and talk about the NIAAA and talk about education-based athletics.
Perfect. And let's, for our listeners, you probably realize Phil then would be the first three-time guest on the Connection. And as long as he stays the Executive Director of the NIAAA, he will continue to be on every year. But let's begin. So usually I spend, 5-10 minutes about your background. I'll direct my listeners to the February 5th episode of 2021 or the November 1st episode of last year for any of that. Let's get straight into the NIAAA portion of the program. So you just had this will air obviously in September, but we're recording it in July. You just had a successful board meeting. All the board members were in. So share with our audience, what was that like? Of course, every summer's different with a different board, but then because it's the board, it's all the same. So I turn it over to you.
Well, Mark, you've been in that room, and that's a special place. It's a special place to witness and observe the best of the best across the country. And so we had 3 days of meetings. Steve Throne, our president, led the meetings, and a lot of dialogue and a lot of decisions to be made. Primarily, number one, with the sixth strategic plan, which was presented to us from Lannis Robinson and as the general chair, and his course chairs, primarily Trish Whitkin and Jeff Sitz and Josh Scott, along with an outstanding committee. It started on that all the way back in October of 24, and now we were at the process of reviewing that with our section meetings and getting feedback. And so the board had to take that feedback, analyze that, break that down, and finalize the sixth strategic plan. And a lot of great dialogue there, but they were able to formulate that. And then, as always, in the July meeting, the awards determination based on the rankings. And we'd already announced our Hall of Fame class for 2025, but we had to do that. And then this year, something unique for a July meeting was Secretary-elect. We had outstanding candidates in the our policies and procedures manual pretty much states that 3 candidates will move forward to the delegate assembly. That is an officer's position, the secretary-elect, and so therefore 3 candidates will be moving forward, and we will announce those later in our IAA magazine coming out, but they will be allocated 3 minutes to give some details of why they should be elected as secretary-elect at our delegate assembly in Tampa. And so looking forward to that process. So again, a lot of great meeting time. The PDA staff, the Professional Development Academy, comes in right before the board, usually a day before. There's usually an overlap maybe of about a half a day. The PDA staff's going out while the board's coming, all of the boards coming in. Our leadership, Steve Throne and Dustin Smith, our president-elect, and our past president, Todd Gropp, all participated in the PDA meeting. So a lot of good interchange there, a lot of decisions made. And again, it's always good to sit there in the chair and just kind of to watch the maturation take place and the discussion take place as the board formulates decisions. And what's so wonderful is to sit there and know that they talk about the fact when they make decisions, they're making decisions that impacts all of our members, and they take that. They don't take that lightly. They respect that honor that they have, and understand they're grateful to be sitting in that room.
That is awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. Let me talk a little bit, a couple of follow-up about the strategic plan. I can remember I was fortunate enough to be part of the fourth strategic plan, so that would have been 11 years ago. And I can remember, you'll probably remember this too. I was moving my son Aaron back from Baltimore back to Salt Lake. And so I called Patty. She got me a room at the Sheridan there and was just hanging out. And so I went down to talk to everybody from the board. I'd just gotten off what? Well, I guess it had been 2 or 3 years. But I remember being cornered by my good friend, the Bad Moon Rison, and Rich Bouchard, and being asked to be one of the subcommittee chairs on the fourth plan. And I just did a little quick math here. There's at least 3 committees, 8 on each committee, without the subcommittee chairs and the general chair. That's 24 people. That's 144 people that will have taken place or have participated in the NIAAA strategic plans. Probably more than that, probably over 150 with the chairs and the subcommittee chairs. Talk about what a special time. And since you brought it up, how those ideas come together, how it flows, because it's such a great experience.
Well, Mark, you brought it up, and I was going to mention it. I had it in my notes. I was fortunate enough to be president in 2013 and got to be fortunate enough to be a part of the leadership process selection for the fourth strategic plan. And again, I can remember it kind of like it was yesterday, talking to you and basically asking you to be a program chair, and then Holly Fernese, and then Sam Rasmussen to also serve. And as you said, Rich Bouchard was our general chair. And when you think about that and you talk about that process, if you look at the chairs and the general chairs positions, most of those are individuals who have served probably at the highest level, because they have the inner knowledge of the things that go on maybe day to day, in the sense of dealing with programs or dealing with operations or dealing with finance, because of either their time on the board or they've been engaged in that process. So when you look at that, but then what's so great about that process is that I'll refer to them as the white hats. So we kind of select the white hats, the ones who have that knowledge, that prior knowledge. But the thing we encourage with the white hats is that you have the knowledge, but what we want is it to be membership driven. And so when you look at our committees, and you talked about our 3 committees, our finance committee has 8, our operations committee has 8, and then our programs committee has 8, and then we have our program chairs over those, and the general chair oversees that. But those come directly from the membership, and we get those recommendations from our section meetings. When we go to section meetings, we solicit for that and get those inputs. And then it's always interesting to watch the board sit down and kind of marinate through the fact of determining, because what you're looking for, and if you look at that, you'll never see, very rarely will you see in the course of our 6 strategic plans, 2 states having 2 representatives. There's a balance you're trying to find across the country as you look through that, both from, an underrepresented standpoint and from the standpoint of making sure that we've got individuals who are committed to coming to Indianapolis for 3 days for those meetings that happen in the fall. And this year was no different. Our board did a fabulous job in that selection, and to watch them in Indianapolis as they worked through that process, and Lannis and his team lead them, was just outstanding. And it's one of the driving forces of the NIAAA. Those that have served on the board know that the first thing that we look at is the strategic plan, and we look at the items that we have to maybe look at that year. And those are kind of in our rear, not in our front windshield looking at those. And we want to get those to our rear view mirror a little bit to where we get them behind us. But Cognia, our accreditation body, is just amazed at, number one, our strategic plan process, how we do it, and the fact that we had the foresight for this to be our 6th strategic plan. It just amazes them that we had the foreseeability to know that we needed to be led by our membership.
Thank you for sharing that. This is kind of a crazy question because I'm going to ask you about the upcoming NEDC conference in Asheville, which is next week. But of course, by the time this airs, it'll be after the coordinators meeting, and the coordinators, so it will have been 6, 7 weeks ago. But talk about the NEDC for a second and the chance to go to Asheville and a lot of new faces that are going to be there with the change of the guard.
Yeah, you're right, Mark. For me, it's bittersweet, but it's also rewarding to see new faces because that's a part of growth, and our organization continues to grow. The National Executive Directors Council meets in Asheville, July the 28th through the 31st. Roy and Rhonda Turner will be the host. They're in North Carolina. They're in Asheville at the beautiful complex of the Biltmore. We'll be hosting it at the Embassy Suites. Just a fabulous meeting of professional development organized. Roy's done a fabulous job in orchestrating and planning for this conference. I know Jeremy Boone, who spoke at one of our conferences, is also going to be making a presentation and presenting to the group. And then just the networking that occurs from the standpoint of learning from others is, to me, the most important thing. And, in this day of technology, in this day of AI, we can all get on our phones and we can text or we can call or we can send an email or whatever, but it still doesn't replace the fact of the actual face to face, being able to sit down with someone, being able to have a conversation, and being able to fellowship in a manner of dealing that camaraderie of, you're not in this alone, we're in this together and we're going to work together. And it's always good, as you well know, to be able to call someone and get some ideas, find out how some things are going and how did this work for you. And part of that NEDC meeting is just a great input for that. And so looking forward to going to Asheville and spending time there. I've never been to Asheville, and so we're looking forward to that as well. And most importantly, I'm looking forward to seeing colleagues that are in the trenches leading their states and trying to push the fact of education-based athletics across their state. You make a valid point. A lot of turnover in the last several years. A lot of old white hats, and that's not in the term a negative term. That's a positive term. Have determined that it's time for someone else to kind of take that mantle and lead, and that's what you're seeing. And it's been good to witness that. It's been good to experience it, but it leads a challenge, as Roy and I were talking about, is you got a lot of people in there that, got a lot of questions. And so it leads to positive meetings during that, and looking forward to the NEDC. And then, Mark, for us, we plan, once we leave the board meeting, we plan for the NEDC meeting. And then we're getting ready for our state coordinator summit, which is in September, and September the 6th through the 8th this year. And that's a train the trainer session for us. And just an event that is invigorating, lifts us up, and encourages others in the states that are leading. And Don Bales, who will be retiring this year in Tampa, this will be his last time in leading the State Coordinator Summit. So it's going to be a special event, and we're looking forward to that.
Thank you. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Well, just one question. You mentioned that part of the section meetings, a lot of that dealt with the upcoming strategic plan, but any stories or any items come out of all the section meetings with you or Becky or Rich that maybe you want to share with the audience?
Well, for me, as I attended 3 section meetings this year. I went to Section 3 in Atlanta. I went to Section 6 in Texas at Round Rock. And then I went to Section 4 in Schaumburg, Illinois. And all of those are great events in the sense of being able to reconnect and being able to share of information. The Atlanta, Georgia one in Section 3 was pretty special this year because Josh Matthews, one of our board members, brought all of Section 3 to his house and hosted a dinner. And his wife, April, and him welcome everyone into their home. And it was just a fabulous event. Again, a lot of fellowship and getting to know each other from the states there in Section 3. So that was special. For me, it was the first time to attend while I was in Section 6. I got the privilege to speak at the Texas Athletic Directors Conference and address the group there. And it was the first time for me to experience the Texas High School Athletic Administrators Conference. And Rusty Dowling and his group, Bob DeYoung, and them just do a fabulous job promoting education-based athletics at a high level, a level that is a little bit different than most of us because of their volume, their numbers. But it was nice to go there and to experience that. And nice enough that I was invited back next year to speak again. So that means that maybe they were okay with what I had to say, and I look forward to us making some greater inroads in the Lone Star State.
That's perfect. And let's give a shout out, talking about big states, a shout out to Section 7, particularly California, which now is, I think, the last of the Section 7 states to go dual membership, but that's made a huge difference nationally. Any comments about that huge development from within the past year?
Well, I'm just so thankful for Ralph Trigstad and Gene Ashton and now the California delegation. It was just over the years, just continuing to share with them the value of the NIAAA. But Ralph and his board finally made the decision to go dual. And Mark, what's so great about that? We know the potential that California has from the standpoint of with education-based athletics, a number of schools, and they have 10 different sections, and those 10 sections are bigger than most states. And
Right.
so when you think about it, it was enormous. And California will be by them going dual, they are our number one membership state this year. They finished the year. Let me see if I can get that number here. They finished the year with 871 ADs, and Gene promised me next year it'll be even higher as they continue to move forward. So excited about that. Excited about we had a great membership numbers this year. Our membership grew almost 1,400 from last year. We were at 16,593 we finished the year with, which is another record membership. And there's so many states. We've got several states that are going to be recognized at the conference. 29 at record membership, 38 at 70% or higher. And then we had 27 states at 100%. And then it's just great to see 12 states increased over 10% from last year. So again, we're just excited about that. And that does not happen unless states are committed to the fact of being a part of the NIAAA and being a part of our network. And just so excited about that opportunity for them to California to go dual, but excited. Mississippi just recently went dual, so we're excited about that in Section 3. And we just continue to work with our states, let them know we're here for them as a resource. We want to be committed to serving our members, and it's exciting to see the growth.
Let's have you talk for a minute about, well, not only just this past year, but I would say maybe in the past 3 or 4 years, the boom that we've had in certification. Uh, Obviously the CAA, but then the CMAAs, then your the international certification, your middle school certification. I mean, it's all such a it's really taken off. So I wanted to give you a minute to comment about that and talk about that.
Well, it's a situation where when you think about certification, you think about leadership training, those are vital component, and membership, those are vital components. So as our membership has grown, so has our certification, so has our leadership training courses grown in the sense of people taking those. But certification is just it's topping out at the seams. And so with that being said, if you follow our social media, you will see monthly we're posting anywhere between 90 to 130 that are getting certified during the course of that month. So kudos, number one, to our certification committee. Sherry Stice from the PDA staff, and then Stephanie Blackwell and them as they continue to lead along with that committee. And people don't understand. They think, this is vital in the sense that it helps our members number one, it creates a value for the job that you do, but it also creates the fact that it's a national certification. So it's similar to, a teacher becoming a national board certified instructor or teacher. And so therefore, we treat it that way. We're certified by the National Certification Commission. But the numbers have been astounding to the point that, we've had to look at some things processes wise to make sure that we're streamlining it a little bit to where we're able to process in a timely fashion. When you get someone excited about certification, the last thing you want them to have to do is wait a while for it to happen. So
Hmm.
that's another component that's come into the office that we're having to manage. And as our staff has grown, we've been able to absorb that a little bit, and it's helped us tremendously. But Nellie Crocker is our certification manager, just does a fabulous job. And each day she'll kind of share with me that, number's going to be higher. So we finished from January to June, the first 6 months at a record membership, record certification numbers as we proceed into the second biannual period of the year. So excited about that. We shared that with the board. Again, and I'd like to say the RAA is taking off, the CAA is taking off, the CMAA continues to grow. And internationally, as we look at that, we're trying to look at ways in which we can continue to grow the international scope. And there's ways we continue to talk about that. We're making some progress. One AD at a time, but we did teach this year in three different continents. So that's a good thing. We taught leadership training in three different continents, and it's good for us to continue to push that envelope with the international. But excited about our certification numbers, and that's a reflection of our membership growth.
Perfect. I want to give a, shout out to someone you know, obviously Trevor Wilson in Utah, but I noticed on the last list that I saw on Facebook or Insta, whatever, he's got his RIAA, and he's a Utah guy, but he's starting to get that international certification. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to, even though it's not on the questions I asked you, so and we covered this before with our others, but so how long has it been now since you've been in Indiana, moved from Kentucky, because obviously you were an assistant and now you're the executive director. So maybe just a minute on how long that's been and how old's the new moon rising now?
Well, Mark, Paul and I, we moved here in June of 2016. And so we've been here 9 years this past June the 1st. We moved, matter of fact, on Memorial Day. And it's funny you say that the new moon is he is 11 years old and
Wow.
going into the fourth grade, and he has a sister that is Peyton, who's going into the first grade next year. So we were just matter of fact, we hosted the board at our house this year and had them over for dinner. My daughter came up to help Paula during that, and we're so thankful she did. But she brought Will and Peyton, so they just got to see the board and see all the people I talk about, and that was such a blessing. So for us, we look at it as um, God has blessed us in the fact for us to be here and have this opportunity, and we're thankful for each day. We're thankful for the colleagues and the friends that we've made across the country, and each day is a blessing. And we're going to continue to work and move forward with the NIAAA until the time is right for me to leave it to someone else.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. Let's delve into a little bit more. You mentioned this earlier when you mentioned Don, but the Professional Development Academy. Talk about there's been changes in that, I would say, over the last 2 years. And I'll say this because Don's a close friend of mine. I think you're replacing Don with 3 or 4 people for that amount. That's the amount of work that he does. But talk about the the PDA, the team, the leadership team as it sits now. Maybe talk a little bit more detail that people don't realize all it is that they do, obviously including uh, the summit in September. how they come in a couple of days before the board gets there. But I mean, I know people know them, but I think in a lot of ways they're unsung because they work in the background, but so much gets done by them. And then maybe a special shout out to Donnie. I'm sure he'll listen to this, but boy, are we going to miss him. I'll turn the time over to you.
Well, thanks, Mark, for the opportunity to share a little bit. Our Professional Development Academy is primarily consists of 14 members, if you count Bruce and Mike, and they're kind of, I guess you would say, emeritus executive directors who serve in just a single capacity, a little bit in the sense of Bruce works with international. Mike is an outstanding writer and is taking over and working with our IAA publication and assisting Justin a little bit in that, and also helping us kind of as a historian. But when you think about that group and what they accomplished, first of all, they are all independent contractors. They're hired primarily in a stipend position, and we meet with them 2 times a year, counting primarily they come in February and they come in July, and then we meet with them primarily at the coordinators meeting prior to the coordinators meeting. They're big, if you look at it holistically from an educational standpoint, it's our curriculum department. When you think about it, it encompasses leadership training, it encompasses certification, it encompasses the quality program assessment, it encompasses the NIAAA Cohort U, it encompasses all of that, international, our publication, all of our things that we do to provide educational initiatives for our members. The great thing about that group is that they work so well together. A lot of them are what I would call white hats that have been engaged at the highest level at the NIAAA. And, you know, sometimes people might say that's a knock. That's not. It's a positive in the sense because they have a knowledge base when they come in there, and you have to have a knowledge base in order to go into that room, in order to understand things that are taking place that are going on within the NIAAA. One of the things we're excited about that we just added, Mark, is we've never, and this is my idea primarily and kind of my initiative driven. As you well know, we lost our good friend, Lee Green
Mm.
several years ago, and with that we lost basically a pioneer for the NIAAA in teaching legal courses across the country and whatever. But Lee sometimes was the silent approach in the fact if Mike or if I called Lee and asked him about, because on a regular basis I will get phone calls on the average probably 25 to 40 a year asking me about some legal issue that there may be that a member is dealing with. And so with that, primarily what happens with that is the first thing I have to do is do a disclaimer. First of all, I'm not a lawyer. All I can advise you is that this is maybe some of the past precedent that's kind of happened before, but I would call Lee from time to time, and Lee would maybe share with me some ideas or whatever, but he never wanted to basically offer that because Lee was not a practicing attorney. He was a teaching attorney. So with that being said, John Johnson comes in, and John was fortunate, really nice enough to do that, and he did a really good job. But other things in John's life became of value to him, and so he stepped aside. And we were fortunate enough to be able to hire. We've just contracted with Tom Horn. Tom Horn is the executive director of Fairfax County Public Schools in Fairfax, Virginia. So Tom is the athletic administrator for one of the largest school districts in the country, but Tom is also a lawyer. And so with that, he has a law degree from George Mason. And Tom has done, those that attended our conference last year, Tom did our sports law year in review in Austin and just did a fabulous job. And so we have contracted with Tom, and he will serve on our PDA team as our legal informational provider. He will help with all the legal courses, but then he will also become legal information provider for our members. As an attorney, it will not be an attorney-client privilege. It will be a situation where he will just share with the member basically what he can share with them legally under the Virginia bar. And so therefore, you will see on final forms going forward, there will be a information form. It's called legal information form. And if a member has any questions, they will fill that out. And then at that point, that comes directly to me. I will categorize it and file it. And at that point, I will forward it to Tom. And Tom, at that point, will reach out to the athletic administrator and provide that information. So it's another member benefit for our members to be able to have someone that they can talk to. But the great thing about Tom, he's just not an attorney. He's also one of them, and that's the great thing. And John Johnson was as well. And so really fortunate to have Tom join our PDA team and whatever. And finally, I'll conclude with this. How do you replace a Jim Watkins and a Don Bales?
Hmm.
Uh, and we
You
lost
don't.
we lost Jim 2 years ago, and now we're losing Don, and we understand that's part of the timing for them is right. And I can say this for Don Bales, it's better than he found it. And
Oh,
it's
much
much
better.
better than he found it. And he left it with his eloquence, his passion, and his love for the NIAAA. And you made a comment there, and I'm not going to dispute it. You said it took three to hire him. Well, the QPA has grown so much, it took three more to kind of be able to get that organized and get that going and to meet the needs of our membership. But Don's a big part of the quality program assessment. He's, I take the Dr. Seuss approach as these people leave, in the sense as they move on and whatever. I'm not going to cry. I'm going to smile because it happened. And I know I'm a better person and a better athletic administrator today just because of my contact with Don Bales, Mark Hunter, all of those that we come in contact. I'm a better person today because of that. And we're going to miss Don, and we're going to acknowledge that in Tampa at the NIAAA annual meeting. We'll acknowledge Don and his service.
Certainly. So, since you talked about the QPA, I just want you to delve into that a little bit deeper. I've been involved for years, so I've seen it progress from when it started to where it is now. But talk about just the past 3 years, and as I understand now, there's at least two cohorts just starting up again. I'm involved with one of them, but just talk about how it's really grew slowly and slowly, and all of a sudden has just burst upon us, and now it's everywhere.
Well, you're right. If everything stays on course, we're going to recognize 66 schools for the quality program assessment in Tampa. That will be a record. It's unbelievable, the growth, and market. It got going so fast that we didn't have any guardrails.
Mm,
And and when you think, you and I know the ins and outs of the QPA, and we know what it takes in order to have a mentor, and then in order to have reviewers and so forth. So really excited about the fact that Don and Josh Scott and Mike Ellison and Mike Gatley have gone in and put some guardrails into the quality program assessment. We were personally wearing out our reviewers because they were viewing so many. So now we have some guardrails in place to where we can do that better. Same thing with our mentors. But let's just think about this holistically. When you think of 66, that's 66 mentors. And then reviewers, we have at least two reviewers, sometimes three. So
at
you can
least
multiply that as.
132. Yeah.
Correct. And so when you start thinking about those volunteers that are donating their time to make others better, it's phenomenal. No different than our national faculty. The volunteerism for the NIAAA is just fabulous. And the great thing about being an athletic administrator is I want everyone to succeed. And we want everyone to be successful. And so we're willing to share so much with each other. But excited about the quality program assessment. We've changed the recognition component. We used to recognize them at the NIAAA annual meeting. Now, just because of the volume last year in Austin, we had a single reception for those 25 that we recognized last year, and we're going to have another single reception this year for those 66. And our hope is that superintendents and principals will come and support their athletic administrator with this assessment. It's a national assessment. When you look at the standards that are engaged in this, it's a barometer and a measuring stick for an athletic director to let his board, his community, know that we are doing the best practices under the guidance of the NIAAA in running our athletic department. And that is so vital and so important. And so where does it go from here? We don't know. We don't know if we can continue to handle 66 every year at a conference. Hopefully the guardrails will help that a little bit, but we also, the hard part for us is as long as we continue to keep getting the volume, we're going to have to look at how we raise our guardrails. And because the last thing we want to be not be able to do is to service our members. And that's a thing that keeps me awake right now at night and thinking about ways in which we have to say no to someone that's maybe ready to start the QPA process.
Sure. Let's have you reminisce for a minute now about the recent conferences. So the recent conferences would be Nashville, Orlando, and Austin. And just about, I believe two of those were record attendees. And just talk about that, which, of course, our national conference is separate from all these other things that we've been talking about.
You know, Mark, first of all, Nashville was such a wonderful site. Um, we've been to Nashville 3 times. And with that, there at the Opryland Hotel, it was just a beautiful site. We've probably outgrown it. We wanted to go back, but to understandable, they didn't have enough rooms for us to be able to really look at that in the future. But we love Nashville. We'll continue to look at Nashville as we move forward in the process, just because of the great success we've had there. I think of 2016, and then I think of 2022 when we talked about Inky Woods speaking, there, and then Jeremy Boone was there, and you think about that. But it's just there was an atmosphere in Nashville that was really special, and then Orlando the following year, it was the numbers were not as good as Nashville, but that Nashville set a record, and it's still our largest conference. But Orlando, we've been to Orlando 9 times.
Yeah.
So that in itself sometimes is a deterrent just a little bit. But we had a great conference, great success with that conference there in the Orlando World Marriott, and it was just a fabulous place. And so then last year we went to Austin. First time, and we've been to Texas numerous times, but the first time we've been in the capital, the Lone Star State there in Austin, and we had a great experience. It went really well. Austin's a really vibrant town that is growing, and matter of fact, to the point, I don't know if even our listeners know, whenever we left Austin, they were tearing down the convention center to build a newer, bigger one. So we could see Austin maybe in the future down the road. You talk about when you talk about the national conference this year going to Tampa. What's exciting to me about Tampa is that we were told no in 2020 because of COVID, and now we're going back. And I'm excited about the fact and thankful for the Tampa Convention Bureau and for the Commerce Bureau to basically invite us back to come back when we didn't get the opportunity to go in 2020. So my good friend and your good friend Lannis Robinson has promised me it will be a record, and we're going to hold him to that. So we're excited about Tampa and what it can bring, and it's a new site in Florida for us to look at it maybe in the future as we continue to grow. If you look at our conferences over the next 4 to 5 years that we have scheduled out, we're going to leave Tampa and go to Phoenix. And we've been to Phoenix, but the area where we were at in Phoenix was really growing then. So we're going to see the growth when we go back in Phoenix. So excited about that. And then our 50th will be in Kansas City. And really excited about going back to where it all started. and celebrating our 50 years. And then in 28, we're coming home, back home. And this was kind of planned a little bit to Indianapolis in the sense as we start basically our 51st year, come back home to where we're at now. We'll start our 51st year in Indianapolis, and we've been here before. And the convention center is massive and huge, and got great hotels, and everything's tied together, so everyone don't have to go outside. We're excited about that. And then finally, probably one of my favorite places in 29, we contractually we're going back to San Antonio, and looking forward to returning back to San Antonio in the Riverwalk area and taking our membership. And currently, Becky's in the process of working on our 2030 contract. Her and Mark Koski are, and that will be out west. And we're hoping to be able to announce that probably maybe in Tampa.
That's awesome. Let me, since you brought up San Antonio, I'll give you a chance to reminisce without mentioning any names, present company accepted, of course, about the last time we had it in Indy and what an incredible President's reception we had. But for some unnamed people, unnamed members of the NIAAA, a impromptu trip to the field in Lucas Fieldhouse.
Well, I would like to say that we could all deny it, but there is photo evidence of all of us. I can remember it well. Annette Scoggins and her president's reception. We had it there at
Mhm.
Lucas Oil Stadium, and it was a grand event and whatever. And of course, all of us being ADs, after the event got toward the end, we had the desire to get down on lower to the football stadium, and we all started making our way down through there. And Bruce had kind of told us, no, you don't need to do that and whatever. And of course, sometimes telling an AD no is also means yes. And so I know there's a group photo of all of us, and it was a grand event. And we did make it down onto the field, the turf field there of Lucas Oil Stadium. And I think since then, Mark, it's probably been in that photo's been in more awards
I,
presentation.
I think you're right. I think every year it just pops up in the presentation. It's amazing how that happens. Well, I wanted to thank you for the time you spent with us, Phil. And so I'll end with this question, which I always end with, which is my way of saying, what didn't we cover? But what question should I have asked you, Phil, that I failed to ask?
Well, Mark, I do want to share with your listeners as we've grown, the NIAAA continues to grow, and those of you that have been to Indianapolis and come and visit us at the 9100 Keystone Crossing, the next time you come, that Keystone Crossing envelope is a little bit bigger. We've been under new ownership. The first floor has just been completely redone. They've built a brand new training center, meeting rooms, et cetera, and they've built a new fitness center down on the first level with steam rooms, saunas, pickleball courts, and everything. And then on the sixth floor, which is housed by the NIAAA, we've expanded our envelope a little bit, almost 2,500 square feet. And now every one of our staff members will have their own office. We've been working in several of our staff members have been working in a communal setting, and we're going to be able to break them out and put them in their own office. We've expanded our kitchen a little bit to make it when we do host meetings that we're going to be able to feed our group of board and PDA members or whatever committee we bring in and feed them in a manner that is conducive to what they expect. And just excited about that to see, because you and I, Mark, I think back to this, you and I sat in a
In the
room
old
that
room.
is now my
Yeah,
office, which at one time was the boardroom.
right.
And as we grew a little bit, we moved the boardroom down to the other end. And that old boardroom became Mike's office and then part of a conference room
Hmm.
and a little bit bigger kitchen. Well, this time they took the conference room is being moved directly behind my office, and then we're going to have two other offices on past it, and then another office on the other side, along with the expanded kitchen, and then a storage room. And so, really excited about that. And I tell all of our members all the time, if you're in Indianapolis and you can get over to Keystone Crossing, please let us know you're coming. We would love to show you your office where your business is conducted on a daily basis.
Well, that is awesome. I should have asked about that. So thanks for sharing that with our listeners. And for our listeners, fill up on his invitation. When you get a chance to be in Indy, make sure to go over to Keystone Crossing and say hi to all of our staff. That wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Phil Bad Moon Rison, the Executive Director of the NIAAA and Certified Master Athletic Administrator. Phil, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.